We now move on to the next session for the day, which is the session on HR. May I invite the panelists on the session for HR, please. That's Anchal, Kamal, Pratap.
Pratap, I think after hearing ISP, it's difficult to speak after ISP shares his views. They change the subject right there. Our subject, which is today, is related to the HR side. And how the HR, what is going on in HR, and how you can learn at your stage what goes on in HR. So few perspectives. I have a very good panel with me. Of course, everyone knows Vivek Atre, Rajesh Pandey runs his own HR consulting, and Harish is listening us from Delhi. And Kamal, who has his own business starting in Ludhiana, and I think it's all over now. All of them have experienced HR in different ways, different stages of their business, and different aspects. So they will, of course, that's a panel. I'll keep asking them more questions as the time passes, and so that you can learn. Then, of course, you will get more time to ask questions. So start, maybe make sure that you ask questions. That's the advantage of your panel round. But let me put a little perspective. A few things. One is, what is the impact of the lower margins of the business on the HR? The margins have, when we started the businesses, IT used to be, we always used to start with 40 to 60% of margins was a discussion used to happen in the IT rooms. You used to say, somebody used to say it's 25%. I remember a board meeting, somebody commenting, it's 25% profit. I said, look at it. Why don't we look at a 30 to 40% or 60%, 50% kind of business model? That's gone. That's gone. I think it's gone forever. Maybe there will be some streaks may come in on certain lines which we have that kind of profitability, but it's become more a mature industry. The customer has understood that we make how much we make. And don't live in that premise that the Americans don't know what is the cost in India. Europeans don't. They know the cost now. They understand. They travel. There's much more traveling. Much more information is available. So they know exactly even the cost of a programmer in India. The last week. They also know the cost of the leasing a place in India. So they can figure out how much are your margins. So they, in a real sense, the markets have gone mature, and henceforth the supplier side also cannot keep building up unless you really have a huge value proposition built up, and that too can stay for a certain sustainable time. So keeping into the profitability is low. Let's bring that up. There's the impact on HR practices. The impact on HR. And the times will change when you start the company. How you gonna deal with that aspect in terms of who is your core team, how you gonna share your money, how you gonna pay off to each of you in the beginning of the times. So all that is changing. That will come in as a part of the perspective. The second aspect which I wanted to talk about was that always we hear about these two things very commonly: resource crunch or talent retention. These two words come in very common linked to HR. And there's been a perpetual discussion, perpetual deliberations on these two aspects. The colors and the types keep changing. So that is another aspect which is pretty much cliche stuff, and we'll bring it up in the current perspective during the question round. And lastly, we'll talk about any opportunities we have. Is there any silver lining in HR from our new pyramid, which is on the side of the pyramid, which is bottom of the pyramid, as Mr. Prahlad used to say, or the rural or semi-rural sources? Is there any sourcing? Is there any possibility that we start hiring people from not where the people are, where the possibility of the supply zone, which we have all ignored over the years? So I think these are the three areas which we'll run through the question round. So let me start. Let me start with Mr. Vivek Atre. Sir, why don't you give a brief about yourself and maybe give the perspective on the first one, which is in the current perspective of the low profitability business models. What is the impact of HR?
Thank you, Pratap. I'm Vivek Atre. I'm from the Haryana Civil Service and been Director of Technical Education and IT in Chandigarh, which is a relevant thing for this seminar. And currently I'm on a sabbatical working with KPMG as Senior Advisor, E-Governance Advisory. Now, we're talking about HR, and Pratap has specifically pointed out that during the current times when the profit margins are low, so how do we deal with problems of HR? Two particular problems which is identified: resource crunch, which is always there, and talent retention. Now, I have certain very radical ideas sometimes on the resource crunch, and I have been an advocate, and we've been discussing at various fora, and Pratap has been one of the people who's been working very closely in some panels with me. We've been working together on how to improve the availability of HR. What is happening is everybody's searching for those 15 chaps who are very good in Java. So if 15 companies are looking for people when there are only 15 people, then they become much sought after. But then what about the 1500 people who are not so good? How do we get them to cross the bar? How do we get them above that line which really matters? So the companies are not going to compromise on talent quality. They want people to deliver because their clients want them to deliver. And especially in such times when profits are low, they cannot afford to mess up any projects because of low quality of work. So if you have low quality people, you're going to produce low quality work. So how do we get these majority of people who are below the desired limit, below that quality line, to upgrade themselves enough? The only answer is for the involvement of the industry or the end user, that is the company, to get into the education system itself. That's a very radical thing for them. It's a very far-reaching thing. But it has been happening. We've been talking about PEC. Pratap and I, we are on a panel where PEC is setting up schools of excellence in the campus, the Punjab Engineering College University. So that those schools, those companies which are setting up schools can then have those students attending those courses while they're still in college, and then they become enabled to come and work for those companies in a better way. So they're ready when they pass out. They have those skills or that orientation which they need. So this is something where the greater the involvement of the companies at the education stage itself, and it's more to do with the lack of initiative taken by the education system than for lack of initiative taken by the companies, that this has not yet really worked. So it's the education system, especially the private colleges, which are more flexible, more independent. They should enable the private sector, the companies, to get into their campus in a way, to be involved with the education, and maybe we introduce short-term courses in addition to the courses which are already there, to get these people ready for the industry by the time they pass out. That is the only way to enable this resource crunch to go. And of course, e-learning, adding value to a person's biodata or CV just by add-on courses all the time. He can spend an hour after office or while he's working, so he keeps upgrading himself. Then we will be able to get this vast majority of the population, the young population, which is at present actually unemployable. And these people, with a little bit of honing of their skills, they can be ready. Just a quick thought on talent retention. Talent retention is going to happen if the talent which is good perceives that he or she is comfortable in this environment. And depends a lot on the leader of the organization, the leader of the division. So if that leader is able to inspire and make his subordinates, his colleagues feel comfortable, even if it's at the cost of a little lower salary, that group of people is going to remain with that company for as long as possible, because they are inspired to work for that company, they're inspired to give their best. And in these times when salaries after last year's downturn, they are not very high, those people are going to give their best only if the leadership is able to inspire them to do so. So the quick thoughts which I had, not so quick, sorry, I took a bit of extra time.
So before I ask Rajesh to add to that, there's another perspective which I expect definitely Rajesh to address a little more deeper. You heard about the bench sizes. The typical dilemma which we face: how many people we hire first, or should we get the work first and then hire the people? That goes on all our life, and is an issue which we never come out with. So there's a concept of a bench size which says, hey, look, if you think the work, your sales pipeline indicates that X amount of work is likely to come in, you will likely to maintain a bench size so that your salespeople are also empowered to go and tell the market, oh, we have X number of people, can start right away. Now, the impact of the low profitability is directly seen on the bench sizes. Whether it's Infosys, TCS, you may not get those numbers correctly, but there's a very huge impact of the profitability on the maintenance of the bench sizes. And that you must need to, and it gets self-corrected, because entrepreneur struggles through that. What do I do? Previously I used to have 10 Java guys sitting all the time waiting for the work to come in, but we have other 80 who are filled in. But now you say, look, can I really give the 80 as Mr. Ajay just mentioned, can we really give them a little more cross-trained? Can we really push them a little more? And maybe some guys from the other skills can be cross-trained so that they cover your bench. This is the impact which you are noticing. And this is a key learning, I would say, of the new times. But let me have Rajesh go deeper in that aspect of the same perspective, or three perspectives that you mentioned. Just introduce yourself and then give a little perspective.
I'm Rajesh Pandey, and I'm running this HR consulting firm called People Factor. And I've been part of IT industry since 1993. I worked with three large organizations, the NIIT Hughes, which is now known as Edison, and Quark. What Pratap was just talking about in terms of the bench size and attracting talent and retaining talent, developing talent, which Mr. Athre just touched upon. You see, the way I'm looking at all these issues, I'm basically looking at this issue from the level of maturity of industry. It's been about 25-30 good years that the industry has been through. And now the industry is reaching that level where the HR processes, systems, and the demand on HR are far more. Because so far in IT industry, HR was basically hiring, and when you are not hiring, then firing. Right? So that is what the business was, and invariably it was driven not by so much by the entrepreneurial perspective or the vision. It was more driven by what cycle, what stage your project is in. But now the way things are going, as the margins are dropping, etc. So we need to start looking at each opportunity of making our organization, first of all, efficient. So whether it means that how do we create bench, for instance? So should we hire people who are ready to sit on the bench? Or can we take on from what Vivek was talking about, that we identify potential employees who basically need some amount of investment of 5, 6, 7 months in terms of training, and create bench out of those people, right? Because there your cost probably would be lower. Maybe organizations can do some amount of forward integration and train those guys and maybe charge some kind of a nominal fee, so that when these guys are ready to come into your business when required, and if not required, your HR can start playing the role of maybe placing them somewhere else, right? So those efficiencies is what we need to start thinking about as a business. Similarly, the other thing that we need to start thinking about is that, you see, as organizations are concerned about the profitability and sustainability of the business, employees are concerned about employability of themselves, right? So if there is an organization which is not adding value to their employees in terms of employability, that organization sooner or later will experience employee crunch or the resource crunch, so to speak. Why? Because when the times are good, when the industry is going through the downturn, etc., you would have excess availability of employees. But the moment things will start becoming okay for the employee, they would start moving out to the greener pastures. And people are nowadays not looking for, in any case, they are not looking for lifelong employment. The best of talent, if they stay with you for 3 years, count yourself lucky. 5 years is like, even people at my age in organizations, if they have stayed in an organization for 5 years, they start getting worried about whether everything is right with them, or they should do something about it. So what I'm trying to say is that 3 to 5 years is what the time frame is. So as an entrepreneur, we need to start planning. So incorporate it in our everyday, every year strategic plan. How am I going to take care of these issues? Because these issues are something that we can't wish away, something that we cannot assume that will not happen with us because of the location or because of whatever reasons. Because now employee mobility is very, very high. People are moving and they are moving cities. So the talent is very, very mobile. And if they do not see that they are they are getting value, right? They are as quick to take decisions and move on as quick the organizations are to let them go. Right? So it's a kind of an equal relationship, so to speak. So what it basically means for HR in everyday terms is that we need to invest in, all employees want to be part of a winning team. And winning team is this organization seen as a winner in the industry, or am also run-of-the-mill kind of an organization. And if we are seen as a run-of-the-mill, and if we do not see a vision, if the employees do not see a vision for the organization, then attracting, retaining becomes very, very tough. So the question is that what is the vision that is projected, that is communicated, that is talked to with the employees in order to retain them? Because I think attraction is still not so much of an issue, because yes, you can train people, you can bring in people, but retaining people becomes a tough issue, because you bring in people, you train them, they become productive, and maybe after 3-4 months, 5 months, and then they take off and move on to something else, which is better. So a lot of my entrepreneurial friends, they say that I'm becoming a training institute than the software development organization, and rightly so, because what's happening is that employees will move, no doubt about that. So you can't wish away that. But can we reduce that number? And the only way we can reduce that turnover is by making the place far more attractive for employees. And attractive is not that in terms of infrastructure or coffee or juice or whatever. It is essentially the kind of projects that we are working on. For instance, in Chandigarh, I see that there must be about 200 software companies today, probably, and because that's the number somebody that's the number somebody gave me. There are about 200 companies are there, and they are of different size. And the most common size is about 20 people organization. And all these companies are basically in the space of web development, and so very low end work. So from entrepreneurial energy point of view, great, but we need to start moving up the value chain, not for ourselves as an entrepreneur only, but also for our employees. And that is what is very, very important. Otherwise, these guys would start moving to the higher and larger organizations, or to the bigger cities, because the demand is there. So what I'm essentially trying to say is that now we need to start looking at all dimensions of organizations and see how can we improve efficiencies, and how can we make the organization more valuable for current and potential employees.
Thank you, Rajesh. So that takes us to another point, the part of the startups. And many times you hear about the retention, and you say, look, how does it make a difference to me? I'm a small company, I'm just 4 people company right now. And I'm in a seminar talking about retention and growth and many things. And for many of us here in the room, probably a aspect of a core team creation is also important. A core team is the one which starts the business, which maybe along the entrepreneur there's some winners who start, which we call it the tier 2 or the very, very inner circle group, which really is going to take the company to the next levels in the coming time. So our next panelist, Mr. Harish. Harish comes from a company called Aspire. Aspire is in Delhi, and I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit on the core team side. When you start in your business in a core team, because many times you make mistakes of either the core team start taking salary more than the income itself, and the business runs down and runs down very quickly. Or the core team they get into a difference between them, because after very soon, 6 months, a year down, they see, look, their objectives were different. One of the technical guys wanted to go abroad and live there. The entrepreneur thought that he is going to get married to a girl overseas and start running the business from there. And the only poor guy, the third guy who had lesser money, was left out in India dealing with the the most difficult aspect of the operations. And all the three of them are running in different directions. And the core team never got established. And I don't know how many will face those challenges. But let me have Harish speak about how do we get to establish a good core team which stays with the company and becomes the fountainhead for the company.
Thanks, Pratap. I'll probably, before I go on to the core team, just shed a little light on what some of my co-panelists have spoken about. One was about attracting and retaining talent. But before that, let me just tell you a little about Aspire. Aspire largely looks at employability skills. And when we say that, it is really relevant to what they have just spoken about. We are targeting a lot of students in tier 2, 3 and 4 cities. So we train them on various employability skills so that employers have employees who are coming at far cheaper rates, so that it hits us. We talked about profitability in the beginning, it hits us over there. You get a large mass of students who are up there at a certain level. We have certain kind of courses which are very, very industry specific, so that students get to that level, because Pratap spoke about, like, I need people in Java, there are only 15 odd, we need to increase that base so that there are more people who are there and available to be employed with certain industries. So that is largely talking about that. Now I'll just come to the main question that Pratap just posed about the core team.